But before we do, I'll call upon the Honourable Government House Leader for tomorrow's hours and business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House will meet tomorrow at 12 noon and sit until 6 p.m. The order of business following the daily routine will be public bills for second reading, and we'll continue with the debate on Bill number 1, the Insurance Act. And, Mr. Speaker, on Friday, as I said yesterday, we will sit from 9 until 3 or until we complete whatever business we have before the House on Friday morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Motion is the House adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow. Is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. Reached the moment of interruption. The subject of this evening's late debate was submitted by the honourable member for Waverley Fall River Beaverbank. Now recognize the honourable member.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honour to rise at my place tonight to speak about the efforts of all of Halifax Regional Municipality's employees, the business community and the residents of the municipality, both federal and provincial agencies, the media, and the many volunteers who are devoting their time and efforts to make emergency relief operations possible over the past several days. It is through the hard work of public servants such as Barry Manuel of the Emergency Measures Organization, the coordinator for the Halifax Regional Municipality, that we are patiently able to restore the electricity and the services to our city and to our province. Hear, hear. Damage to our coastal regions, wharves, and the selective deforestation of landmarks such as Point Pleasant Park and the Halifax Public Gardens are shocking reminders of the fierce weather brought upon the province by Hurricane Juan. Given the darkened state of the city, police have been busier than normal. HRM-RCMP experienced double the regular number of calls in a 24-hour period, and Halifax Regional Police had 3 times their normal total, as they each dealt with reports of looting, vandalism, and an occasional mischief call. The activity of the Halifax firefighters is almost 10 times its regular level, with most calls due to small fires and alarm malfunctions. Fire stations throughout the HRM are also producing and providing drinking water to residents in need from many fire stations in each fire service area. When Hurricane Juan left the province in the early hours of Monday morning, it left behind a province with almost a third of its residents without power. Through long hours and unflagging efforts, Nova Scotia Power Incorporated has been able to reduce the number of residents affected by power outages by more than 50% as we speak. The power company estimates that they will be able to restore the majority of power outages by Thursday night. With the affected community still in a state of emergency, it is very crucial for the thousands of storm-stricken Nova Scotians without power, phones, and water to remain patient, calm, and most importantly, safe. The frustration of living by candlelight with spoiled food in one's refrigerator and no hot water can be damaging to the patients and the goodwill of hurricane victims. However, in the wake of Hurricane Juan, a strong community spirit remains among those affected by power outages and service disruptions. It is often said, Mr. Speaker, that crisis can bring out the best in people, and there are many shining examples throughout the Halifax Regional Municipality of good citizens offering their friendship and support to the neighbours in need. Hear, hear. Businesses, small and large alike, have opened their doors and provided goods and service to neighbourhoods, despite the loss of power to their stores. On street and within apartment buildings, people have been helping each other obtain coffee, tea, and warm meals. In places such as Pinecrest Avenue in Dartmouth, a sense of community and collaboration prevailed upon the victims of the recent storm. In some apartment complexes, residents shared heated water for coffee and tea with their elderly neighbours, many of whom were virtually trapped in their apartments due to the immense physical effort of climbing up and down their stairwells, as elevators were without power. Sharing conversation, food, and company provided storm victims offerings of potluck stew, soups, hot dogs, steak, chicken, scalloped potatoes, and some hamburgers. Some residents built community fire pits, while others offered makeshift barbecues. Together they cooked, shared their food, and enjoyed the company of friends and neighbours. Surrounded by candles and Coleman stoves, they offered a comfort to their children and grandchildren during what has been a frightening experience for all involved. In my community of Fall River, gas power generators were shared a few hours at a time to save perishables and deep freezes as neighbours shared conversation, and I suspect on occasion a soft drink or two. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize the many courageous efforts of all those involved in the cleanup and the restoration of power in the aftermath of Hurricane Juan. And I would especially like to thank the business community, residents of our municipality for their civic-minded work and patient dedication to those in their neighbourhoods, apartment complexes, and the communities.
Thank you. The honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on this resolution. I've been through a few storms myself, being a fisherman. On one time, I was on George's Bank in a 60-foot boat, blowing 70 knot of wind, which was hurricane force. We had seas coming at us higher than this building on that bank, and when them seas get to shore, there may be sometimes twice as high in the Bay of Fundy area in the Gulf of Maine. I welcome the honourable member's motion, as I fully understand what volunteers do and what volunteers have to go through. And without volunteers in this province, there would be messes still out there that we wouldn't see cleaned up today. And I can guarantee you that. I've heard people say in this room that volunteers are tireless. I don't believe in that. Our volunteers do tire out, and I've seen many volunteers in our area get very, very tired. So tired they get sick. And it's not right. There should be more volunteers, made easier. The government should make it easier for more volunteers in this province to do more work. As the MLA for Digby and Annapolis, and being from a fishing community, like I said earlier, I've seen storms come on them shores, right to doors, right to house doors, and smash the doors in on them. And that's when the work started, the next day after the storm, not during it. So right now in this city, we have a big job ahead of us of restoring the power in this city. And I know there's a lot of volunteers probably trying to help the power company do that. But I also understand that EMO has access to 1,550 volunteers that's out around this province. I don't know how many they've called on in this city to help them, but I grant you and I assure you that if them volunteers had a call tonight from EMO, that they would be here tomorrow morning daylight. They would be here with their power saws, they would be here with their shovels, they would be here with what they needed to have to clean this mess up. And I bet you that this mess would be cleaned up fast. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I should go on more about the volunteers, but I believe that should happen. I believe the EMO should get in touch with the ground and search people of this province and bring them to this city, because I don't think this city, I've been out on the streets here talking to people cleaning up, and this city's going to be a long while before it's cleaned up. And then volunteers out there are waiting for the call to come to this city. It wouldn't cost a whole lot of money, a little room and board and a little food and water, and they would be here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to stand and address this resolution brought forward. It's been a hard couple days here in the province, and I think as a member of this House and as a resident of Sackville-Cobequid and a past volunteer firefighter and currently still a paramedic, I want to personally thank all the workers and volunteers in this province who have stepped up in this hard time in our province and tried to bring back some normality to our lives. I think that's what we all want in this situation, to feel that things are back to normal. But when you have an episode like this, such as this tornado, where I think many of the hurricanes, a lot of the residents in this province, I think, underestimated the power of nature, and I must admit myself also. But it just shows that I think we need to be prepared for the next one. I think we did drop the ball on this, and I think the government did too. I believe that we need to be more prepared. We need to advise the public that the storm had such force and that could bring such devastation to our province. I want to give a special thanks to all those residents in the communities throughout the province who stepped up to the plate, if you want to say, in the early mornings of Monday morning. Just in my own community, waking up and going out in the neighborhood and seeing the devastation brought forward by this hurricane, and to see the camaraderie of the neighbors, some of them meeting for the first time out on the doorsteps in their backyards, looking at the destruction that happened. And it wasn't much after that I seen the same neighbors who probably never really took the time to meet who her neighbors were, out clearing their lot, clearing the debris from their house and their yard, and like the member opposite said, had barbecues and almost like a town hall gathering in the backyard with barbecues. I think we were fortunate in this hurricane that the weather has been so good after this event, because if this could have been a lot worse if the weather wasn't on our side. I think it's making for an easier cleanup, and it'll be a lot quicker due to the weather conditions that we're having now. It just shows the good nature of the residents of Nova Scotia. The communities are getting increasingly concerned with the time that it's taking to restore some of the power to our communities. And I want everybody to know that you have to reassure these people that the people working in this province are working hard. I think they're stretched to the limit right now, and I hope after this is all is said and done about this incident, that we do have an evaluation of what happened, and to maybe increase such things as linesmen, because it takes a devastation like this to realize what we really need, what our needs as a province to provide our residents with the
What did we learn from this?
with the staffing ability to restore us back to some normality. Personally, as a paramedic working in this province, as they said many times to us, is that we're not paid to be busy. There is a lot of downtime as a paramedic, but it's not that you could look at it and say, since there's not many calls in a certain area of Nova Scotia, you don't need paramedics. You need people in positions to be able to respond to events like this. Not only if it's an emergency, like a health emergency, as paramedics respond to, or like I did in the past, but people like the linesmen who are there to restore one of our vital needs, electricity. As we've heard many times throughout the day today, it's vital to have power in our community to be able to provide us with electricity for our fridges and our stoves, for freezers, and also for a lot of people who live in rural Nova Scotia, providing them with water with the pumps that are involved with the wells. So I just want to say again that it was a great resolution to bring forward, and I support it, and that the outcome of this was not what everybody expected. But I think we need to learn that in the event of another hurricane like this, that we may need to be more prepared. And I think we need to thank all the workers that are out there, all the military men and women who are out cleaning the sides of our streets right now, clearing debris from yards and walkways. And they're working in dangerous conditions right now. And I hope that they stay safe when they're out there working, and hope that we don't have any more tragic losses in our province. As you're aware, a good colleague of mine paid the ultimate price on Monday night or early Monday morning. But he enjoyed his work. And just like many of the linesmen and many of the people out in our community that are called on during these disasters, they enjoy doing that. And they look forward to being able to provide some help to people that may not be able to do it for themselves. Just to mention that John Rossiter, he enjoyed his work as a paramedic, and I don't think you could have kept him away from the trucks that night, even if you told him today that someone was going to perish in that hurricane. So I really want to thank all the workers and the volunteers in our communities throughout Nova Scotia, and especially the volunteers and the neighbors that have just, it's been outstanding how they've responded. And I think we're lucky that these people had the ability to get out and volunteer, because I think this would take us a lot longer if we didn't have volunteers in our community clearing debris. I think if we waited for these men and women who work for some of these services that are out being paid to clear the streets, it would be a long time before we get back to normal. So in closing, I just want to thank you, the member, for bringing this resolution forward, and I want to thank again all the workers and volunteers of the province of Nova Scotia to hopefully get us through this in a quick and speedy manner. Thank you.
The honourable member for Colchester North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd too like to talk about Hurricane Juan, and being from rural Nova Scotia, Colchester North, it wasn't until after I got up in the morning that I realized the devastation that took place. We were without power at our place, and our phone was still working, and at 10 to 7, the phone rang, and was a person that lives by my cottage, which is approximately 50 kilometers away in Little Dyke, who advised me that the roof was partially torn off my cottage. At that time, I went outside and I looked around, and I could see the trees that were down on my farm and that, and it was a lot of like pickup sticks. So I left for work that morning, and I started driving down my laneway, and the trees were crossed, but I could get out and the highway, and I'm talking about before 9 o'clock in the morning. And what did amaze me, though, at this time, was trees that were down at that time on the highway were actually cut by the Department of Highways and made the road passable into Truro, which is 30 kilometers away. Well, driving into Truro that morning, it was obvious to me that something dramatic had taken place. And it was then that I learned through a radio station in Halifax, because the Truro radio station, of course, was off the air itself, that the hurricane had come ashore and the brunt of it had touched Halifax, continued up through Musquodoboit, Colchester, through to Tatamagouche and PEI, with branching off, of course, to Pictou County and a bit into Cumberland County. It was almost as if a tornado had struck through that swath. Coming into Truro, I saw trailers overturned, hydro lines, the poles were snapped in two. Also, reaching Truro, you were unable to navigate the streets. The trees were uprooted. See a lot of damage to houses. My son and daughter, who also live in Truro, they are without power, and as I speak, when I left this morning, they were still without power, and I know that my wife is still without power tonight. They also had damage. One of the trees fell on a neighbor's roof, and my son, his tree, one of his big trees went over. But to realize this devastating effect, and the way the emergency crews went into operation, I know that there's been criticism labeled by the opposition. And to me, sometimes criticism is necessary and should be directed, but often it's a case of criticism is the lowest form of wit. And I've heard a lot in this legislature in the last 2 days. Some of it, which is probably warranted, but a lot that isn't, as we know. And so, in closing this late night debate, I would like to thank the volunteers who has come in, and EMO, and the coordination that has taken place, the coordination sending in the Army troops, and the coordination with getting the communication out. In fact, just an example is the radio station, which has in Truro, which has an AM and FM station. They called me in the morning, and they were having difficulty getting through, of course, because the chaos was still in effect. And not that I did accomplish the things that they wanted me to do, but I did try. And EMO was contacted in Halifax, and an effort was made, and Nova Scotia Power were finally contacted. And what had happened, the transmission backup had blown in Nutby Tower, and through a surge of electricity, which puts the radio station off the air, which meant that the people in Truro, if they couldn't get the Halifax station, then they were without communication, and they didn't exactly know what was happening. So the EMO and Nova Scotia Power and the radio station, they were able at 7 o'clock that night, approximately 7 o'clock, to get the radio station back on air. And I must commend the radio station for getting news out. In fact, when they come on the air, they worked right through the night and were very informative of what was going on and advising people. People that, at that time, of course, would have transistor radios on and so on. And they were being advised. And I know that Nova Scotia Power are to be commended. And as I speak, they are still working, trying to restore the amount of electricity. In fact, they have 150 power crews, and they're working tirelessly around the clock to restore electricity. And they also have teams from New Brunswick and Maine, and they are also brought in to speak or to help solve the problems. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, looking at you when you're motioning. How much time?
Your time allotted has expired.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The honourable member for Halifax Clayton Park.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad that time permits me to speak tonight as well. I think that there's no question that we support the resolution that's been brought forward by the member from Fall River. And I certainly think it is important that we recognize volunteers, but I do feel that this discussion is really premature. There are still people without power, particularly, as I mentioned in an earlier resolution today, the seniors that are stuck in apartment buildings. And to me, heading into 72 hours without power, there's a crisis still going on. And it's a little early to sing the praises of the people who are working hard to restore power and have done a good job up to this point. But we're still in the midst of what really is a crisis. And I haven't heard anything here today that lets me know that the people that are trapped in apartment buildings are being reached. A lot of them, may not have phones. They may not know where to phone. The numbers that have been given out, at some length in the last 2 days here in the House are very general. They're generic kind of phone numbers. They're not going to tell you what to do if you really feel isolated or frightened. If you have run out of candles and batteries, if you haven't got any food left, and after 72 hours, all of the announcements have told us that your food is no longer safe to eat. We've read in the paper about people who are diabetics, whose insulin is no longer any good because it's kept in the refrigerator. So people are in some crisis right now, and I feel that in the urban area, I know there's different levels of crisis and different things happening in various areas, but in the urban area we have a lot of apartment buildings. In my district alone, I would say probably between 30 and in my constituency, 30 or 40% of the people live in apartment buildings. And certainly that means that a lot of them are elderly. I've walked and knocked on many of those doors in the last few months during the election. I know an awful lot of them are elderly or disabled or unable to make the stairs on their own. So those people really need to be contacted. And as much as I support saying now about all the goodwill things that have been happening, certainly in the neighborhoods a lot of good things have been happening. The weather's been fine. People are barbecuing. It's bringing neighborhoods together. That's all been very wonderful, and I've shared in that. But my neighborhood this morning still didn't have power. And it is a crisis for people who are elderly, who can't get out and connect with those neighbors. And I also know that in apartment buildings there's a great deal of isolation. People don't know each other to the same extent that they do in homes. And therefore it becomes even more critical that the government has some sort of organized approach to get into those buildings and ensure that people have been contacted and that they are all right. And as much as you might say that an MLA's job is to do that, I don't think I can reach the thousands of apartment buildings that are in the Clayton Park and Fairview area. So I would hope that something is being done in that regard as well. And that's really the purpose of my rising tonight, is to say, yes, I applaud the efforts of everybody who's working to restore some normalcy to the city. And I think it's wonderful that they are clearing streets and buses can run again. That's all very important. And working on extending the power, which is essential. But we need to get out there now and start to contact people in apartments and even in homes if people know of areas where they may be isolated. But I think the high apartments are where we should begin this effort, because those people are really at risk after 72 hours without power. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, member for Pictou West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too rise in support of the resolution, and I think it was Charles Dickens that once said that these are the best of times and these are the worst of times, and I think this past 2 or 3 days we've gone through that, and it's been very, very difficult for many people, right down to, unfortunately, the loss of life by 2 Nova Scotians. But personally, I come from the North Shore, as the member opposite has spoken about, in Pictou County. We had some serious devastation there. I guess the first big news I heard on Monday morning in my riding was the fact that our historic ship Hector was washed aground and had broke its moorings and had sailed a little bit across the water and hit against the local restaurant and was actually listing on quite a sharp angle. A lot of concern, because a lot of people over the last 10 or 15 years have more or less grown up with that particular ship and are attached to it. But fortunately, when the high tide came in around noon, it righted itself and it was able to be freed from the rocks by heavy machinery and was towed back to its moorings. And there's some damage, slight damage, but not serious. There's physical damage out there, but it's not nothing that can't be fixed. This resolution speaks about volunteers, and I think we can, first of all, talk about many of the unsung heroes that are out there that perhaps don't get much attention here. I haven't heard talk of today too much, and I'm thinking of people like in the Red Cross and the Salvation Army. These are people that over and over come back and are always there 24 hours a day. They're willing to be available, and not just in situations like this, but many, many disasters and floods and storms that take place. So we should remember those 2 groups of individuals. And there's also many other unsung heroes that are out there that are perhaps you don't even think about, but they're not a member of an organization, they're not a member of a fire department, they're just your neighbors, your friends, your family that will, as the previous member mentioned, will step up to the plate and do something to help. So we've got a lot of people out there that have done a lot of work, and I think we're thankful to the many, many volunteers. So I understand my time is up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. There's There's about 4 minutes left in the Liberals' time in this debate. If anybody else in the Liberal Party would like to finish, if not, I'll open it up to any member that's here this evening. The honourable member for Dartmouth North had indicated. The honourable member for Dartmouth East.
4 minutes?
Given the fact that there's no one in the Liberal caucus who wants to finish? Sure. No? Okay. The honourable member for Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do agree that volunteerism is fantastic. It's great. That's how I come to be here. That's how I started out, you could say. However, I do have to go back and speak about something that I did see on TV last night, where some seniors were helped out by the Red Cross, who I know the Red Cross are doing everything they can within their power to help out these seniors in apartment complexes by giving them 1 bottle of water and a granola bar. However, I don't think that's enough to keep these people healthy during this crisis. I do believe it's up to our government to step forward and provide some kind of crisis intervention in whatever way they can. In times of world crisis, the government of Nova Scotia, the government of Canada, reaches out a helping hand to other countries, other provinces. We help out each other. I think there's a lack of a helping hand here within our own province towards ourselves, and especially those in Metro and everywhere else. Another thing I would like to mention is that also, you know, we've seen one very destructive fire in which people were, there's been a loss of life, a mother and 2 children, and I do believe that it's a possibility that this was caused because of the use of candles. And I don't know if people, I'm sure most people are aware, but when your electricity goes off, a lot of smoke detectors are run on an electrical current, and they're not battery operated. And a lot of these apartment buildings do not have the battery operated smoke detectors. So it is something that's still a concern, and I think you know, we're going to have to deal with that. And I certainly agree that we're just not seeing enough help come forward, and you know, there's no sense in waiting till it's all over and then say, let's assess it. I know everybody's doing the best job they can, but we've only got so many staff working on these problems and so many volunteers to do the work. So certainly, you know, we should continue to press forward with the government for as long as it takes. And, you know, I'm sure this isn't going to be the first hurricane that's going to hit here, you know. Our oceans are warming up. We've got climate change. You're cutting me off. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good job. No member's time has expired. Thank you. And time allotted for this evening's late debate has expired. I'd like to thank the honourable member for bringing it forward and the honourable members for taking part in this debate tonight. We appreciate it very much. Thank you. And the House is adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.